nyikwa Ramogi kuom bet ka kodwa. Kaka wachoga, it is once again that time and we are together. Well, we appreciate your presence because you could have been anywhere else in the world doing anything else that you fancy, like, have a passion for, and enjoying. But you're here with us. We do not take that for granted. Once again, it is that time when we can delve a little and paro, rango, and see what history has for us and what we can learn from it and from the experience of the Luo Girl. Thank you so much. Welcome. And as we always say, Luo is our business. Luo El Halawa. Luo is our business. And we're open for business. 247-365. 366, 367, 368, 370. We take all forms of currency. It's only one form of currency that we do not take. But eventually it is no currency at all. But we take all forms of currency. Bitcoin, credit cards, debit cards, virtual money, physical money, cowrie shells, any form of value. Welcome. The older one there, Waduok Nigo. Telo.
Erokamano. JK erokamano. Kuom kawuono wakawo nyaka cowrie shell. An gi moko kae abro kelo. The Luo Girl. Ikri nikech koro in emidwa chakonwago kapodi ok wakelo analysis mar Ramoth.
Antiere aikora.
Bas, koro e achiel ariyo adek pap koro mari, koro waweni pap wadwa winjo duondi.
Thank you. We were moving to adolescence as the fourth part of the read. In the interim period between childhood and adolescence, there comes a time when a girl's ability to deal with domestic work is more advanced than her physical and mental development. It is during this period that the mother, still occupying a central position as advisor and supervisor of the girl's work, finds difficulty in the management of her daughter. Since the domestic work of her household is heavy, the mother uses all kinds of pressure to induce her daughter to do as much as she can. The girl's life at this time is characterized by her increased interest in boys and desire to come into contact with them. The friendships established during childhood with other young girls are weakened by the development of a new object of friendship in the opposite sex. During this time, the breasts of most girls develop noticeably. The girls show a great interest in this development and employ various means to stimulate it. An instance of this interest can sometimes be seen among those who stuff clothes in their bosoms to exaggerate the size. On the whole, the period differs only in the fact that girls definitely aspire to be grown-ups and are also more interested in friendship with boys. Characteristics of adolescence. This new period is the time when the mother leaves her daughter to bring her knowledge of domestic work to perfection by her own efforts. As compared with the school-going age, there is little or no interference from the mother. Thus, the adolescent girl enjoys the freedom of being able to do most of her domestic work independently. Unless strict discipline is exercised, she spends much of her time meeting her male friends. The thought of marriage begins to assume a reality and to become an influential factor in her attitude and movements. The self-love, which made its first conspicuous appearance during the preceding age, now takes the form of an effort to make herself look more attractive. Holes may be made in the ears, from which to suspend earrings, and all sorts of amulets or bands are worn around the wrists. Clothes or headdresses of bright colors are specially chosen. Although the practice is fast dying out, girls of this age used also to be addicted to tattooing their backs. Better clothing is among the most pressing needs of adolescent girls, and their families must either make sacrifices or else persuade the girl to make do with what is available. The attitude of the parents The attitude of the parents towards an adolescent girl is greatly concerned with their economic value and ability to do domestic work efficiently. An added consideration is the girl's conduct, both in and outside the family circle. Hence, a girl's ability to work well in the house gives her mother satisfaction, which finds an outlet in conversation with other women. The mother strives to put forward the merits of her daughter as well as her social conduct in the community, while the young girl becomes almost mistress of the house, her mother hardly touching the work, especially when there is more than one adolescent daughter. The shock experience when the girl is married is a matter which some of the envious neighbors do not refrain from mentioning. On the other hand, a daughter who is inefficient of domestic work is no credit to her mother's reputation. There is therefore frequent friction between some mothers and daughters. The father, while maintaining an interest of his own, does not exhibit his liking for his daughter so openly. The economic value of a girl to society is gauged by the extent to which a man may be excused his debts on the ground that after his daughter's marriage he will be able to pay them. Allowances given to girls are not very generous, despite the fact that daughters have higher economic value than sons. There's a feeling that not much money should be lavished on someone who will not remain in the family to help the father in his old age. The main reason is to see the girl married, and it is a source of worry if she does not associate with men. The main desire is to see the girl married, and it is a source of worry if she does not associate with men. The girl is also expected to be sociable towards neighboring women because if she is unpopular with them, they might speak against her in the presence of her suitor or his relatives. At this time, disciplinary control by the parent slackens, since in order to contact men, the girl requires a certain amount of freedom. Disciplinary measures may be exercised only in the event of misconduct, such as running away with a young man without notice to parents or having relations which are normally prejudicial to the community life. The mother, however, loses her dominating influence during the school age, and the task of disciplining the older girl becomes the duty of the father or her older brothers. The sexual life and attitude of adolescents. The sexual life of the adolescent is conditioned by the prevailing social conventions of the nature of sexual relationship between males and females. Thus, though it may appear on the surface that Luo society makes no allowance for unrestricted sexual contact, in fact, a difficult burden is imposed on the girls, who have to endure considerable inhibition to avoid social censure. On the other hand, boys enjoy much greater freedom. It would appear that this relatively stronger censure on girls' conduct derives its strength from the anatomical evidence a woman is required to show on her day of marriage to prove her chastity. In this way, it appears to be the duty of the society to make sure that girls live up to the moral standards which ensure them a successful marriage. Therefore, whilst considerable intermingling is accorded to both sexes, relationships resulting in pregnancies and prostitutions are discouraged. And as has been seen, the social stigma attached to such relationships and their results comes down most heavily on the woman. In view of the difficulties involved, the girl therefore adopts a compromise. She uses her wit as a defensive means of enabling her to enjoy the companionship of men and at the same time to help her avoid being overcome by their reasoning. In this way, an adolescent girl who is clever at conversation is admired and considered entertaining by those men with whom she comes into contact. When there are meetings between young girls and men, there is accordingly a great deal of artful conversation. Girls consider men to be full of tricks designed to trap them. Mothers also want their growing daughters to be careful of their conduct when with the opposite sex, explaining particularly that men are not to be played with to an extent where the matter becomes serious. When girls go about together in a group, they reproach any of their number who give in to men easily. On these occasions, group morality is far stronger than among those who are more individual in their attitude. On the whole, girls dislike those men whose chief object is sexual satisfaction. Their caution is often the result of talks on the nature of sexual relationship which girls hold on their communal sleeping places and with older women. When newly married women return to their maternal homes, they freely discuss amongst themselves, especially during sleeping hours, their experiences with their husbands. This affords an opportunity for the unmarried adolescent girl to obtain first-hand information on the nature of relationships in married life. Opportunities for contact. The normal first meeting between girls and those with whom they might have sexual relations take place by conscious or deliberate arrangements made by the parties concerned at marriage ceremonies or in public places like market centers or towns. The first make each other's acquaintance somewhere between the girls and the man's house, particularly when the two live in close proximity. These are distinguished from any other meeting in that they are arranged between the male friends and the older adolescent girls or those in the threshold of adolescence. In the meeting, which takes place during marriage ceremonies, are observed with great interest by girls of the nursing age who watch the older girls' behavior towards their men friends with keen curiosity. In many instances, introduction are managed through the brothers of the girls. Introductions resulting in marriage may also come about through a girl first acquainting herself with sisters who introduce their brother to her. Brothers of adolescent girls would, like all members of the family, disapprove of a prolonged relationship without any sign of betrothal and would do all they could to persuade the girl to look for another friend. Sex education of adolescent girls. Girls in the old traditional society had a more deliberate and conscious sex education than they receive in modern times. That's a big difference there. The instruction on the nature of sexual relationship was formerly given by an old woman of the village whose hut served as a communal sleeping place for the girls. This old woman was one who must have stopped giving birth to children. She was either a grandmother or an elder wife in a polygamous homestead. The communal sleeping places are still a feature of the girls' environment, but many of the modern huts have no experienced woman in them. Hence, the girls have lost their former source of instruction on both the marital and the following day-to-day relationships. The change from the traditional type of sex education has forced girls approaching marriage to seek information elsewhere. At present, they usually make inquiries of experienced married women living in the neighborhood. Beyond a few cautious warnings, mothers are rarely known to take part in the sex education of their daughters, while fathers are completely detached from this field of inquiry. Sex activities in the communal sleeping places. Talks on sex are not the only activities engaged by adolescent girls in their sleeping places. In some areas, they also receive nocturnal visits from young men who have failed to find suitable opportunities to meet them during the day. This is not a widely spread practice. However, it may be due partly to the strict morality imposed by the Christian moral conventions. Sometimes the girls themselves make arrangements to welcome these visitors by night, remaining awake in order to open the door for the men with whom they have made an appointment. Sometimes this form of visit is also carried out by young men without the girls' consent, but if they are discovered, a great outcry is raised against such raiders. It is considered a disgrace to be discovered as an accomplice in raids on the girls' sleeping quarters. I'm going to stop there and take a break as we analyze that first part, the sexual life and attitude of adolescents.
Thank you, the Luo Girl. Can you hear me?
I
Iwinja?
can hear you. I'm
Okay.
Inji Malay.
Yeah. I think Ramoth could be having issues with the power. So I don't know, but let me try. JK,
Even Jatelo.
awinji maler. Inyalo
Yeah.
adwari kapok system war. Koro
Kawuono gi amwan gi sima stima.
wow.
Kabisa. Kawaida.
Yeah, so adwaro ni inemi idwelo on it mondi kadiponi anything can happen. So I would want to or you've been listening to what has been read and all that, and there is this issue of it's a number of there are a number of things like it's a consequence of things that are done communally, and it is known who needs to do what, and actually again they've repeated. I think it was in the last chapters that we read, but again they've mentioned the fathers. The fathers are deliberately put aside out of this because there are just very special things that women are meant to do. So take us through these adolescents in your own understanding and deeply how you could tackle it before, so that we catch everything that you could say before something happens to us. Thank you.
Yeah, on the part me watch about the fathers, okay, I would say it is not because the men are totally detached, kako wacho no. Iwinjo?
Yeah, going.
Well, Inji,
Kawacho, it is not because the fathers are totally detached. Remember, Ominde is always European thinking. He's always European thinking. The men are detached because men can only create a woman who is good for himself. They cannot create a woman who is good for someone else. So there's no way he'd be involved. It doesn't even make sense. And you see this phenomenon even in the current world, that somebody says, a lady says, my father taught me this. Aude Duogo, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. You see this phenomenon in our age where the woman says, my father taught me this and my father taught me this. And most of those relationships do not work, because then you should be your father's wife. Because that is, a man can only make a woman for himself. He cannot make a woman for another man. So that's why he's detached. He's not detached because they don't care about this. The women were at that time were detached because they knew what was happening, and this relates completely to this time they're saying. Second thing is this term adolescent. that he's using. You have to remember adolescence is a totally made up European concept. Nowadays, we talk as if it is true. We talk as if it is what happens. But if you look at a human person, you can't say it is adolescence. Yes, we say, oh, because he's misbehaving, it's adolescence. And it is a completely made up European concept. Even if you go to people like, let's say the Arabs, they don't have this concept of an adolescent. If you go to the Japanese, they don't have this concept of an adolescent. It's a very European way of looking at life. So trying to put this girl and say the adolescent behaves like this, again, Southall and Ominde collaborating to put what they're observing into a European perspective. So a lot of detail is being lost because we're just rushing through. This is an adolescent and her breasts are coming and her earrings. That was the norm. That was the norm. It was how they did. This idea of sexual education. Let me just look at it again. There's quite a lot that was said. So breaking this thing, there's the adolescent age, and then and they come to this new period of time when the mother leaves the daughter to bring her knowledge of domestic work to perfection by her own efforts. It was not like this. This woman, this young girl exists in age groups, and she keeps acquiring more knowledge as she goes through the age groups. Yesterday we were looking at, it was a curriculum.
Correct, yeah.
So even some of this, first of all, starting with the concept, she's an adolescent. Okay, we put that to the side. So then the second part is like, okay, she's been left to herself. Because to herself, that is not how it was made. And then, so the self-love, which made its first conscious appearance during the preceding age, now takes the form of an effort to make herself look more attractive. If you know the Luo worldview, like we do go into sometimes, this part that the human being has to be attractive, especially the female, is really ingrained in the Luo perspective of life. It is not something that she has to be introduced to, and then because she's an adolescent now. They're thinking about the European context of how they did. And remember how the concept of adolescent came into European thought. It's not and especially with the female child. This term really comes into being inside the city. And in the city, during this industrial revolution, majority of the workforce is children. Especially the male child. But the female child is also serving a purpose. She's being married extremely young. This is now European, Euro-American history. And majority of the prostitutes were female children. So that when they started giving laws that the children could not work anymore, they had this abundance of, especially girls who had syphilis and these problems, and boys who have nowhere to go. Because schooling also is for the elite. Correct. Schooling is a very lot phenomenon in the European concept. So they had to invent this term of an adolescent to deal with this problem. And then this problem, how they dealt with it is where they started things like YMCA and the scouts to really absorb them and to train them as a society finds another way to deal with them. So it was important to have this, okay, the adolescents, this particular group. Before, it was not just an age, it was a group of these girls and these boys, who are living in the city. And remember, within this capacity, most of these people, all these wars, World War I, World War II, all these things, the other wars, have really killed off their men and their parents. So the remaining adults, yeah, it's quite something. So by inventing this term, they're trying to find a way to deal with this problem. So by coming up with a term, adolescence, they can now start focusing on the problem. So you see, in this context, although in the Luo context, most of their parents are dead. That's why, because now the system has really killed them off. That's the first state. Then the second state in the Luo experience is like, as a defeat of as a result of defeat with the Europeans, majority of the parents have been made potters, especially the men, so they are gone. And then when it comes to this time that Ominde is there now, they're starting to go to the cities, because Ominde now is in Uganda studying. So even his observations are things he just sees when he comes for holiday. So majority of the people are going to the farms, like Ananga was saying. So these children are being left more to themselves because they can't go to the farms. Like the way Ananga was saying, if he works in wherever they are working over there, they cannot be the fathers to their children, because they cannot carry them over there, because you're working in a farm. Majority of the people working on farms. So you cannot carry your family and go work with them in the farm. So some of the things here, if the context is left out, it seems like, okay, this is the observation of this Luo girl historically, and things are just happening like that. Apart, like the attitude of the parents towards the attitude of the parents towards an adolescent girl is greatly concerned with her economic value and her ability to do domestic work efficiently. And in consideration is the girl's conduct, both in and outside the family circle. What does he mean by economic value? What is he talking about, economic value, to be honest? Because you're saying in the Luo system, she was being taught, which is now completely broken down, completely. But she was not being taught for marriage. That's why you see in front there, they're saying the women who were training the younger ones were preferably one who is not giving birth anymore. So you see, she has a purpose even after giving birth. She has a purpose, and in her places where most of the people sleep, most of the girls sleep. And you realize that this problem you're having that he's writing about is because there are no more women anymore who do this. So even the sexual activity that he's talking about is because these women are not there anymore. It's not because she's an adolescent. So it's an interesting way to put it. Something that is quite interesting is especially this sexual activity part. This one, sexual life and attitude of adolescents. Adolescents again. The sexual life of the adolescent is conditioned by the prevailing social conventions on the nature of sexual relationships between male and females. Thus, though it may appear on the surface, the Luo society makes no allowance for unrestricted sexual contact. In fact, a difficult burden is imposed on the girls, who have to endure considerable inhibition to avoid social censure. This part is a little technical. That's what I would say. It's a little technical. So the social censure he's talking about is because they understand who and what and why a woman is. Remember the last time we said how her brain is growing and her reproductive organs are growing at the same time. So the body is starting to find a split of energy. So now, by introducing sexual activity, introducing sexual activity at this age, you are really the man, the boy who is having sexual activity, is directing more the body on where the energy should be directed. More towards the sexual organs, not the sexual organs, more towards the reproductive organs. That's why it was really strict. When they start having the sexual intercourse like this, there's so much that is happening because through the sexual intercourse, then the male is introducing new fluids, completely new fluids, not even just semen, but there's so many fluids that pass around. You hear even diseases pass. So by introducing these fluids, remember the body is learning all types of things. Now, if you introduce new fluids, you're kind of affecting where it should focus, where the energy should focus on, because now there's more data on this side. So that's why it was really not encouraged.
Mm-hmm.
And then one thing that happens a lot of times is when now the body starts focusing on this side, for it to go back to stop this idea of preparing itself for this process of childbirth, and the child is coming, because the body the body is not thinking you're having sex for fun. It is biologically, it's thinking you're having sex to have children.
Mm-hmm.
The body is not, it is not modern the way you think. I mean, the way you think, the way your brain works in this generation, where it is hookup. They're hooking up. There's no serious. We're just hooking up and having sex for fun, living your life. But the body is thinking, oh, she's getting ready to have children. That's why she's gone into this. Most of the time in this situation, because it is taking so much energy to concentrate and to be ready for the child, because the woman's body now has to be formed in a way where it's taking from the environment. Sometimes it makes the energy that is going to more the brain and develop it becomes more reduced.
Mm-hmm.
Because the body is using the same energy. It's not using batteries. So some of the things you realize is that if she continues like this, the brain exists on a certain level. It starts existing on a certain level. Because it's not using a lot of the energy, it's trying to save on energy. So it's more going towards this part where a child could come and this and that, and especially if she's super active, the way they are saying that he comes and all this. This is why it says, therefore, whilst considerable intermingling is accorded to both sexes, relationships resulting in pregnancies and prostitution are discouraged. It's not because they don't want the people to have sex. It's because what is happening to this woman or this girl. Sex is not, for her, sex is not just sex. For women, sex is not just sex. It doesn't matter what now the system has told you, equality and all this. You're taking in more information. So by engaging so early, you might find the body now stays here, because for it to start giving the energy back, it's considerable. The body is always trying to use the least, preserve energy, because your body is just your body is not a power station. It is not the engine of it does not run on battery. It has enough energy. And this energy, just a certain amount. And that's why you sleep for almost 5 to 7 hours, just for it to recover and start portioning out the energy again. So if you don't sleep for several days, you really feel it. Because that same energy is being used for growth of the teeth, the bones, everything. The same energy is being used for the brain, focus, attention, thinking. It's using the same energy. But now in this case of the girl, now she has introduced completely digesting different. That is also another part of energy that is to be used. So here down there it says, in this way, an adolescent girl who is clever at conversation is admired and considered entertaining by those men who come into contact with her. But the whole thing was, she uses her wit as a defensive means of enabling her to enjoy the companionship of men, and at the same time to help avoid being overcome by their reasoning. By this it means overcome by their reasoning to enter into a situation where they're having sexual intercourse. Because these people they were not silly like we are. They knew, like I was saying last time, they knew what, who, and why a woman was, and what is happening. Because at the core, at the center of Luo thought, is the human being, both male and female. So a deep understanding of the male and female is important. You put them at the middle so you can focus on them and study them. The other interesting thing here is this part again. In the view of the difficulties involved, the girl adopts a compromise. But these are girls who, in this situation, they don't have the older women to teach them deeply what is happening, because they would be explained these things. This is why it was important for the woman who to explain this. The older woman is the one who, it's not, her brain now is not, her energy is not more focused on producing children. And even they were saying an older woman in a polygamous relationship. So even the pressure of sex from a husband is not there. So you see how long it is taking for the brain to start portioning energy. Because now there's no more children. It doesn't have to push majority of the energy down. And this other part, the same part, she uses her wit as a defensive means of enabling her to enjoy the companionship of men. This is super important. Super important. Men and women are different. Different. This comes to the point where the most important decision a female will make, and here I mean a female, is the type of man that she is with. Because you see, he keeps introducing new information. You see, new information. And even if you look at our times, it's very evident. So I give a very brash example, but maybe to bring it through. So let's say she has had 3 boyfriends. One is a drunkard, another is a thief, another is a con man. Just by being in the vicinity of these people, she learns these behaviors. So if I'm her 4th man, I meet her when I'm a 4th man. I meet someone who has, by this contact and this exchanging fluids with this man, someone who is oriented towards a thief, a drunkard, and a con man. And every time I'm talking to her, I'm talking to these characteristics in her first. So it was important that she's very witty, that she can have enjoyable conversations, but not let them overcome her. Because not all men she wants to get she doesn't want their DNA. Not all men's DNA is worth it. So one of the most important decisions she'll make is the type of man she has around her. The one she procreates with. This will be super important. Because for the man, the most important decision he will make is his purpose in this life. Because he doesn't give birth. So he has to have something that is above body, is above this. Because even the woman and the lady, when she has a baby, she has to do a pause. She has to concentrate. She has to slow down. And men don't have this. So if she's slowing down and risking her life, because even childbirth, she can give, hopefully it goes well, but there's the capacity to die in childbirth. So she's risking everything for this drunkard or this clown. It becomes quite taxing on her body. On her body. Because even now the child is trying to digest this. Remember I was saying that even her fluids inside her are changing because this child is trying to learn the world. Now this child has, like the way they say she has HIV. But now I don't mean like the disease. I'm using that to show there's some characteristics she gets from the father. So this one is now stressing the mom because the father has introduced some tests that the kid is trying to find. It's naturally in him now. Maybe some allegiance to something. Let's not say smoking or just something that he does. So the kid is really stressing this woman because he's trying to find that naturally. So that is why it was really important for her to be able. George, I disappeared or you?
Me.
Okay. It was very important for her to be able to collect men because they will help you. It is important for men to be around, but it is they would help the woman, but not to engage with them sexually. And this she can only do with the wit, like the way she talks. She can really. So that was really celebrated. That is why that point is there. Being she's living the way she's living. Yeah, so this says about the opportunity of contacts, but that is in this context, in this context that he's looking at them. The mothers are gone, they're working in different places and all these other places, and even the sexual activity in the communal sleeping places. This would not have worked if the older women are there and the women are being, the younger ladies were being taught and the young girls were being taught really what happens, not from a not by putting it as adolescence and they are finding, but really this is what is happening to you. You're continuously growing until maybe you reach, until you're older. And this person will introduce new information. And you're going to meet a very important point. One very important point. Why the men in this, the quality and the type of men in this scenario matter. Because the women, as they go through their phases, there's one part that they cannot enter themselves. It is a life-changing part, but she cannot do it herself. This is motherhood. A man has to do it. A man has to be the one who initiates this process by making her pregnant. Let's say now she does it and she gets pregnant through semen insemination and all these things. This portion changes her completely. Completely. This motherhood pregnancy changes her completely. She'll never be the same after that. So these things were taken in the more olden times. They were more guarded. That's why the idea that they were having sex and they meet and it was not encouraged. Because this having this husband and then he brings these cows is for him to assure us that he really understands what is happening with this woman and is ready to take responsibility for that. Because the cows here do not represent value, like he's saying money. The cows here represent, as we've been seeing in the stories, they represent the community. It's not an exchange of value like money. It represents community. Like this guy understands that Dhako e Uganda. Dhako e Uganda. And how do I represent that I understand Dhako e Uganda? I bring a symbol of Uganda, which is the cow, and give to these guys. There's no, you cannot say she's worth 20 cows. That's not the point.
Correct.
It is this exchange that before these people, I have put myself here and said, I know who she is, I know what she is, I know who she is and why she is. And I know it's not a game. It is about, she has the capacity to make these generations. And she has the capacity to produce the next version of champions. So that our society, lives forever. Because remember, in the Luo context, we will live forever on earth. 1. 2, the way we live forever is reproducing, having children. And since we live forever by reproducing, that's why we do not cut our sexual organs. This is too important for us to do violence against it. So that is just by the side. George, let me leave it there so we can continue. If you have something, or the Luo Girl has something to say about that, about what we've read.
Luo Girl, possibly if do you want to say something to that? If not,
Just a little social side. I've heard Ramos talk so much about the biology of the lady and her body reactions and the development and a whole lot of educational stuff. I was just going to note something about the father. I've noticed that the father is making technical appearances here and there in the life of the Luo Girl. Somewhere back there, he was sitting in the compound just looking at the daughter and, trying to value, giving, like, to evaluate what she could be worth. And I say worth, quote unquote, because that's what they think. But as we move on, we realize at some point the father is coming in to discipline the girl in stages where now the mother's discipline is somehow wanaona ni kama wanaweza toshana kwa sababu kila mtu ameanza kumea kifua, so the father comes in. And the last part where I also see the father coming in is the part where they say your daughter is valued by the number of cows that you get and your ability to pay your debt after your daughter is married off. If you are in debt and your daughter is married off, they bring dowry so that you are able to pay your debt. Or I used to see my grandfather giving out his daughters, or it was one daughter that was given out to settle a debt. Now that is, I could compare it to that part where they say like your daughter's value can be measured by your ability to settle your debt after dowry is paid, after your daughter is married. Something else that I am realizing with the mother, as this girl grows, there is the aspect of do I call it added responsibilities or negligence on the mother side, so that the daughter takes up more responsibilities as compared to earlier. There is this period that the mother gives daughter time to bring in, her knowledge of domestic work. And in this case, there is so little supervision. A question that is bothering me is Whereas in the modern society, come up with the issue of Oedipus complex because as we read this, Ramoth said it's a European kind of mindset, adolescence and all that. But we see how the father is, for the father's limited presence in the girl's life. And equally, I assume that the mother's presence is also so much limited in the boy's life. But then there comes this issue of Oedipus complex now out of the read. Why do we come from with where do we come from with this point of girls are on their father's sides and well could be something to do with opposite sex and all that. Another thing that I also noticed as we were reading was the training of the girls and the value of chastity back then. Right now we're having sex for fun, but back then chastity was valued, and eventually it would even determine how marriage would be. And most of the time, if you are found not pure, it was something that would bring shame to your family. Or your mother would be reproached for failing to train you well, and your father would be, where they point fingers and all that. So I think, and most of the burden of all this, you remember they said boys have more freedom compared to the girl, and all this burden, the burden of reproach lies on the mother for failing to train you well. That one we saw back even when the issue of cooking came up. The burden of premarital sex and the consequences fall deeper or fall harder on the girl as opposed to the boys who, made this happen. So I'm not even going to talk about fairness because somehow the social setting is giving a higher burden to the female gender for responsibility on things that were enabled by both genders. Uh, the issue of freedom is slightly different because even right now we realize that the freedom given is comparatively different. If you compare them, you realize men have more freedom, have the chance of doing whatever they want, while girls have freedom with restrictions. Just go and do this but with men there are no much buts, especially in their parenting. So I think at this stage the Luo girl has an emotional burden. She has a social circle to please, an economic value to meet, as well as her physical needs as a maturing girl. So it's a whole lot of things. Thank you.
Ramoth, I want to bring you in a bit of a GK into Ramoth panel.
Apalo chalo gima joka pod lawe matin.
Yeah, in fact, actually, it's power issue. Uh, but well, if at all he rejoins, we'll see. But I want to react to a few things. Number one, I wanted Ramoth's input on this value issue, the value issue where a father, because I suspect that is Ominde's way of thinking. It's Ominde and Southwards
Mm,
idea around the issue. Uh,
valuing the lady.
because yes, because Ramoth has made it very clear, and it came out very clearly that you can't value a woman. You can't say you are worth 20 cows, you are worth 10 cows, you are worth 100
Mm,
cows. You can't. So I think for me that was Ominde and Southall idea of putting it that way. And then the other thing that Ramoth said that I find very interesting. No, let me talk about something you've said before I go to Ramoth, so that I connect them. The Oedipus complex, that concept was developed by Sigmund Freud in psychoanalytic theory. But to be honest with you, in the current psychology world, the Oedipus complex has been a part of most part of it has actually been thrown away. But I see Ramoth should be back. Ramoth should be back.
Amerudi.
Yeah, and then now because since Ramoth is back, Ramoth, I wanted number one. Number one is about the you talked about it, and Ominde. I'm feeling when the Luo girl is talking about it with concern. Of course, she's concerned about it because you said it is very important. We must mark out that there is no way you can value a woman, but here that you are worth 20 cows. But here we are seeing Ominde and Southall saying that the father sometimes just sits in the Elaro and is looking at the daughter and kind of valuing that. Please talk to us about that. And then the other one, um, the Sigmund friend, the Oedipus, that already I've talked about it. It's a concept that doesn't work currently. Modern psychology has refused it. Even philosophers have refused it. It had got a lot of flaws. That, and then the last remote, you talked about you know this value, the system, the biological perspective of sex, and it came out very clearly to me, and I'm like, if we don't get anything you say today, we need to get this, that from biological perspective, the human body evolved mainly around survival and reproduction. There's nothing else. During sexual activity, the brain and the body release those powerful hormones, we know them, and chemicals such as dopamine, oxytocin, endorphins, and all that. But the what is very important for me that you've said, the body doesn't realize you're having fun. It doesn't realize you're having pleasure. It is ready. It's wonder, oh, okay, we are ready here to get a child now. And that's why I connected to what you've said. The woman is the community. So it was very important who gets married to who. That is why in those days,
Hold on, what happened? Oh, the winja dear. Loga Livinja. Or is it me who has disappeared? Oh, it's Auda.
Awinji Molar.
Auda, let me answer before Auda comes back. The valuing. Okay.
yeah,
Auda, the last point Kamane Gedi is when you are talking about the valuing of
yes,
this.
of this, yes.
Let me start with this. With this thing of he's saying that the father is sitting there and just analyzing and looking at her from her economic value. How does Ominde and Southall know what is happening in the mind of this man? Seriously,
Thank you.
this is nonsense. Even if you just look at it naturally, it is not even a point to put your mind on. It is nonsense. How do you know? How do you know George is sitting there? He's looking at his daughter and he's just thinking how much cows he will get. Is there a thought bubble in his head? Is there is it, do you see it in the eyes? Do you see it in the hands? Do you see him counting in the air being like, Does he say it that this will be what? What does he mean? He doesn't tell us why he comes to this conclusion. This is where you notice this is household doing this. Why? Remember, women in Kenya or Africa, when it was time to vote, they could vote. When the opportunity came that they could vote, because it came at once, they could vote. The women in Europe and America had to die, be beaten in the streets, stripped naked, to vote. These so-called advanced people, she had to die. They had to be put in prison. Not for any, just to vote. Well, the women's suffrage movements, the women's suffrage movements in Europe and in other places. When did the women start voting? When the women start voting? When did they really start voting? Let's say in America.
Where, Ramos?
In America. Or in England. That is a good question to know. When specifically did they start voting? So they have been a civilization from forever. But when in history did they start voting? Good. The second part is this. To understand why...
Very recently, after Martin Luther King.
To understand why it is important for Europeans to look at women, even in the African context, and see the cows and think it's an economic exchange, is because in European history, only two things were valueless: women and cows. The first person that the European enslaved before enslaving Africans was the European woman. And I mean enslaved. Like they could sell the European woman in the market. This is their sisters and their mothers. Now, if you look at the history, not the sanitized history that comes in this Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones, these are the nonsensical, fictitious history that they make in Hollywood, like people were wearing big dresses. That is Hollywood history. For thousands of years, the woman was the first slave. That's why it was for them. They could not come out of this concept when they saw what was happening. They are the ones who called it bride price.
Bride price.
I keep saying we are European thinking. We don't seem to realize we are European thinking. We are looking at the world from a European perspective. It is just, for most of us, it is just unlucky we were born in Africa. So we were born in the wrong place. That's why we all want to go to Europe. But our whole thinking, our whole structure of thinking is completely European. And I stretch it to this Oedipus complex. A very European way of looking at life. Because Oedipus, who is Oedipus? Who is Oedipus, first of all? People don't even ask, who is Oedipus? So that we say, okay, he has Oedipus complex. Who is Oedipus? So they say this.
Ramoth, you're asking a question.
Yes, who is Oedipus?
That it's some Greek some figure.
This is what they
Indian
say.
figure
You
in
see?
Greek mythology,
You
something.
see?
I
You see,
don't know.
we are never clear about it, but we are talking about these terms as if we know what we are talking about. We're discussing European concepts, and we really think we are thinking.
They say some myth born
So it
king.
says like this. It says Oedipus. Oedipus, his name means swollen foot. Was a mythical Greek king of Thebes. And he says a tragic hero. Important, tragic. Second, hero. In Greek mythology. Oedipus unwittingly fulfilled a prophecy that he would end up killing his father and marrying his mother, thereby bringing disaster to his city and family. So the story of Oedipus is the subject of Sophocles' tragedy, Oedipus Rex. So Oedipus the king, Rex is the king, which is followed in narrative sequence by Oedipus at Cologne by then Antigone, another one who is right. Together, these are playwriters. Sophocles and Antigone are playwriters in the European context. So when people like Sigmund Freud, they are using their legends, the way we use Luanda Magere, to analyze what is happening. He was using those stories to analyze his society. So if this clown or this genius or whatever he wants to be called, master psychologist, whatever, is analyzing his society, what is there for me to discuss? Really, what is there for me to discuss? We always do this thing of, we are using, it's like Ouda is in hospital. But Ouda was born, let's say, in Alego. I am in hospital. We happen to be in the same hospital. I was born, let's say, in Nairobi, in the slum. And then the doctor comes into the room and says, oh, since Ouda is a Luo and Ramoth is a Luo, I don't have to know specifically what is the difference in their body, their weight, their blood pressure and sugar. If I just use Ouda's diagnosis, I can treat Ramoth. Or vice versa. If I use Ramoth's hypothesis or diagnosis, I will find out what is wrong with Ouda. So Ouda has come to the hospital with headache. I have come with maybe stress. Or maybe my leg is broken. So we are going to use, since we are all Luos, they are black. What is the difference? Same difference. Black, same difference. So we say, oh, and Luo, same difference. Parents are Luo, they eat fish, whatever. So we can use any. So we use, my leg is broken. Ouda has headache, and we're using, okay. So they're using his diagnosis to diagnose me. You said your head is aching. I'm like, no, the doctor, my foot is broken. He's like, I know, but this here says that your head is aching. Do you think that your foot is broken because your head is aching? I'm like, no, doctor, I have no headache. My foot is bleeding. It's like, no, but maybe your foot is bleeding because you have a headache, And this is what we keep doing. So you find an African who has no relation to Oedipus is trying to understand African society through the Oedipus complex. A Greek king, mythological king. It did not even happen. This is a myth. Oedipus did not happen. It is not true. This so-called master psychologist, blah, 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 takes a story that did not happen, that is supposed to show a prophecy. The story is about a prophecy and how that prophecy is fulfilled. And then he's using that to explain modern European psychology. And us, that he's justified, that those are his people. If he misdiagnoses them, it is his people and it is his society. But us now, we are here like I'm a master psychologist and I'm arguing if it is true or not. Do you think this concept of Oedipus is true? And we're trying to understand even this story of a Luo girl with those. We really do European think. Most of us were just born in the wrong continent. Inside, we really are Europeans through and through. Finding an African Luo is very difficult. Or would I say this always? They look at the world through European lenses. Even this adolescence, there's a time of adolescence, and it's nothing like this. He's just sitting there thinking about price. Because he's looking at this man as if he's looking at European men when they're still trading in women. George, you have something to say on this?
I'm I'm happy you've you've talked about Oedipus complex because I have never believed it. Number one, uh, not entirely, but I've never believed some of, especially the things he talks about. You know, those the early childhood and experiences and children develop emotional attachment to caregivers and all those stories he tells. Because the truth of the matter is just like you've said, and I've always believed that, and I think I'm a bit happy now that it has come out the way it has come out. Because the bottom line is, the very bottom line, if we leave anything else, Sigmund was using the language, the system, and everything else that was happening in his time and around him. It was about his society. We can't take that to judge everybody else a century later. So I don't think that can't work. And I agree, because even like you're saying, Oedipus, yes, it was a myth. There are myths and all that and all that. So how do we transfer a myth, a Greek myth, into Africa and say this is it? This is what is happening. And you've given an analogy of us going to hospital, and then a doctor wants to now prescribe medication based on the fact that, oh, magi joluo, oh, magi chuo, oh, jog gin aged kama, gin higni makama, oh, jog ohero culture gite, oh, jog. Anyway, so I leave it that Ramon. But then we give it to the Luo girl to continue reading. I think it is really coming out. And Ramoth, yes, we have to say it. The thinking is really European. I don't know whether it is the right way to say, we are at a crossroad, because we want to correct some things or say some things correctly, but you can't correct it or say it correctly because you are not looking at it correctly. And I mean, you're not looking at it correctly because you are looking it through the lenses of somebody else's life. And it can't just happen. That is where the predicament is. Everything around us, it's like our silicon chip was taken away and replaced with another one. So it's the other one that is working in us. Ours originally was removed. Nyagine dhi mbele, Luo Girl dhi mbele. Ramoth, Ramoth, Ramoth kik ilal. Jo- jogo ni kik tem.
Okay, on attaining maturity. The attainment of maturity among girls is marked by the first onset of menstruation. In the past, this was kept very secret until several periods had been experienced, and even now, its first occurrence is kept a secret. Formerly, early preparations were made for it by instructing the girls about the physical changes involved. The information regarding this important physiological happening used to be given by the old woman in whose heart the girls slept. At present, the information is obtained largely from experienced women with whom the girls associate. In the past, there was no initiation ceremony to celebrate the event, and today the position remains the same. Although betrothal of a girl could take place as early as 10, the social attitude was and is still that girls should not be handed over to their husbands before attaining maturity. Even when the mutual handing over took place before this age, the girl was obliged to live in the home of some older woman until the advent of menstruation. It is believed that premature marriage results in great weakness to the girl. The social position of a girl on reaching maturity. The social position of the newly mature girl is vague and uncertain. In any abnormality of mind, character, or body is a source of anxiety to her family. Moreover, as most girls marry between 16 and 18, there is a tendency for ill wishers to overstate the ages of girls above that limit because the attitude of the society towards them is similar to that adopted towards overdue goods. Hmm. Those who fail to marry at an early age thus become subjects of scorn. So strong is the pressure exerted by this attitude that unmarried girls, as they grow older, are often forced to marry in the end by taking advantage of the institution of polygamy, which acts as a final method of absorption. Although she may live to an advanced age, a single girl is continually tormented by the fact that society does not approve of unmarried girls. Restrictions. Traditionally, a mature girl is not allowed to enter her father's or her mother's sleeping place, especially if the mother is still giving birth to children. This restriction, although generally ignored by Christians, applies also to the wives of her uncles, those who are her parents or parents by marriage. Do not go where a girl receives her male visitors. By custom, this hut was built beyond the view of the parents' huts and served as a sleeping place for boys. It is considered that the girl who has commenced associating with men should not enter her mother's or father's hut because she would interfere with their powers of reproduction. Interesting. Relationship with brothers. The fear of incest has led to the practice of keeping young women's activities as separate as possible from those of their brothers, but free association and conversation concerning their mutual interests generally takes place, since brothers and sisters retain an interest in each other's love affairs. From his sisters, a young man may be informed of things he wishes to know about his girlfriend. Premarital pregnancy. Cases of premarital pregnancy were very rare in the past, according to most of my informants. But this rarity was not due to the fact that sexual relationships were prohibited. Pregnancy among mature girls was apparently not infrequent from any strict moral code, but from the conscious efforts of the girls themselves to guard against it, because much importance was attached to virginity. It was a matter of personal pride and was carefully guarded. It was a great honor and a source of much social rejoicing to discover that a married woman had been found to be virgin. Such a bride was given a high prestige among the other women. In the past, if a woman gave birth to an illegitimate child, her only chance of marriage was to an old man with a number of wives. There was no possibility of occupying the position of chief wife of the family, and if the heads of cattle paid were much and the heads of cattle paid were much fewer. The child was taken by the man who legally married her, but she was not allowed to give birth in her own home. Everything was done to get rid of her as soon as possible. Examples of such pregnancies are very common at present, but although social disapproval is still keenly felt, modern conditions have become more favorable to women in this situation, and an increasing number of them are being married to bachelors. Unlike some communities, no death punishment was ever given. In the occurrence, if the occurrence takes place between close relatives, the matter is kept secret. In the past, however, the couple could be exiled. Modern education and adolescent girls, it's quite short, that one. Progress in the education of adolescent girls is hampered because the Luo people do not appreciate its suitability to the environment of their women. Mm. To the majority, modern education is associated with clerical work and the many other jobs that men take up after a school career. The position of girls in this scheme is not clearly envisaged. The social importance attached to marriage is having to adapt itself to a prolonged school career and a raised age for marriage, which this implies. An inability to appreciate schooling for girls is also based on a high esteem for the traditional education, which it tends to interrupt and weaken. I'm going to stop there. Auda,
Iwinja.
awinje.
Ramoth, again, some myths here. Adwaro ni the some
Gipon.
myths again, the mbele, though again winjogi, some myths, a number of them, please.
Abu Dimbele now. I check on something Dakachiel.
Okay, no, it's fine. Okay,
Hold on.
so eh, uh, the truth is, the book is written in the eyes of Ominde. Ominde is becoming a professor in the system then, being supervised by Southall. So obviously Ominde would write. Depicting, I wanna pick only one thing, and then Bramot comes in. Depicting somebody with so many women, and then a girl is given to them, and what is the difference? Those were polygamous. What does it? What this difference does it make? Whether you are woman number 2, number 3, number 4, what difference does it make that now you are low, your value is low, you must be married to somebody with many wives? Luos were marrying many wives. Who didn't marry many wives those days? So I think that one I pick it up immediately and I'm like, that is nonsense, honestly speaking. Because you can't develop, what is the difference between wife number 6 and wife number 2? Because the only place they talk of, the book has said, nobody would take the place of the first wife. You can't. She will always be the first wife. The question is, what's the difference between wife number 5 and number 6? They are somebody's wives. So I don't agree with that. No, even in my present time now, I would never say that anybody, a woman being married to a second, third, as a second, third wife is devalued or something. No, that is understanding it differently. It is the same way. Ramoth, this might the nyonwa gemade wachoni. It is the same. Oh, I'm on. Oh, alwar. It is the same. It is no difference coming to tell us polygamy is the worst thing that ever happened. You can never even go to heaven. And yet, same gender marriages are the best thing that can take you to heaven and you own golden houses there. I'm sorry, I'm not buying that. Ramot. Kasedu.
Oh, yeah?
Somebody Ramot, sorry for this. Sorry for this, but even yon one cage. I'm picking a war with this idea of a wife number 5 is devalued, and these people were polygamous by design, proudly polygamous. There's no difference between a wife number 5 and number 6. You're not going to devalue a woman because you now you all koro ini di bedo da komara da komara dick. What is the difference? Can that komara dick? This guy had a second wife. What's wrong with that? And then you tell us ni polygamy rach malich rach onge okinyon polo. Yet same gender marriage to ber malich kendo udiori tu ipolo. Ramot kawe kapok olor nyon wapi.
Iwacho ni warit daka matin mondo ane kilal. I think isimoni connection.
Yeah.
I dog to this thing a bit. Maturity. This was to me a bit interesting. Just on this fact. Owachoni something he was talking about an age, about 16, something like this. Koro, my question is this. My question is this. In 1946, when he's talking about this, 1926, how does he know? How does Ominde know that these girls that are getting married are about 16? Ingegimo penjo mano, George. The birth certificate system was introduced in 1926 in the law in 1926. So not everybody took it the first year, or the second year, or the third year, or the fourth year, or the fifth year, or even the sixth year. By the time Ominde is writing, it's only been 20 years since the thing was instituted.
Correct.
So how do you know this one is 16? How do you know the age of this girl?
Even before we even go there, because you're right, even people born those days, we don't know their exact ages. They were estimating.
That is what I'm saying. How is he putting maturity to age? Another European concept.
Adolescent, remember, if you have adolescent in your mind, it must just be a certain age.
Yes. So in another, even they're saying that if they felt the girl was not mature, they would even if she was advanced, she would still go live with somebody else so that she's mature. So again, in maturity was something internal. Yes, she must menstruate, but also there's sense she does not get married early. Because you cannot take somebody who is young, still young, and say she's mature because she's menstruating. Maturity is not measured by menstruation. So that is to say that this society of Luos, the way we've seen from the whole structure they had, that they must have been so foolish to just say like, oh, she's menstruating, so she's mature. And I just explained a bit how they knew, like it was important to watch what is happening with the girl, because also you can't say everybody matures at the same time.
Correct.
That's why I was saying, if you look at this idea of adolescent, it's about that. Everybody who is 14 to 15 or everybody who is 10 to 16 is an adolescent. So they have to have these characteristics.
Uniform characteristics.
All of them, all people who you say quote unquote are 16, all have, like, we're still European thinking. So even when he's talking about maturity, maturity was not because of menstruation. These are broken systems. We're really looking at broken systems. This is what I like about this book. It's a result of broken systems. So if somebody is reading this and does not see the brokenness of the system, it's like, oh, this is interesting fact. This is eye-opening. Yeah. So what I love about this book is it shows you how a situation of, like when you're reading the Bible and then they say you're reading something like the book of Nehemiah, and before you are reading the book of First Kings, and then it's this glorious thing when King Solomon was there and everything was prosperous, and then you're reading Nehemiah and everything is gone. They're starting to build a wall. They have been taken to Babylon during Daniel's time. So it's not this, even if you're reading the book, it's not the same. And the time when they were looking at the time from they're looking at the time from Moses, and they've been released with something like the Bible. We read it like this, but when we come to this so-called books, we don't read it like that. It's the truth. He's talking about what was happening to all girls in all times and everywhere in Luo land. You know? And this guy also has just occasions to watch this. So for me, I love it because using the girl, you see how the society has deteriorated, because girls really are, girls especially, they are really harbinger, or they are really a sign of how the society is. How they carry themselves, how they behave is really it's really a big show of what is happening in the society. Because again, here Uganda, women are the civilization. Like, in a lot of Uganda is civilization, but they're the generations on this. As I was mentioning the other time, after doing the experiments in the plantations, they discovered if you just traumatize this woman enough, the kids will all come traumatized. That's the easiest way to do this. That's why they were preventing, the ones who knew, they were preventing the girls from going to this school. Because these are the people who have murdered their system, and there are still people who have seen Obilo do this. Because Obilo enters in 1920s, and he's the one who is killing everywhere and forcing elders on people who people knew this elder. This one is stupid, but he's the elder now because he's been given a police force, and they are coming with guns. So you expect those people, like 20 years later, they should still be trusting these people and their education, quote unquote.
Even fools grow old.
So it's still really looking at this out of context. And it goes on and says, the thing that is also interesting is this premarital pregnancy. I tried to explain this, but we put it to biology because we are European thinking. So for us, there's biology, there's a biological reason, and there's a social reason. We are European thinking. Biology is sociology. Sociology is biology. It is biological beings living together that creates a society. These things are not separate. They're only separate in the European mind. So you're saying, okay, there are biological reasons, but there are also social reasons. So this society is not made up of these biological people.
They want to create positions, Ramon.
Yes, because it's the same concept of there's a soul and there's a
Psychologists must be
spirit.
different from sociologists.
You have to have these fields. People need jobs, because
Exactly.
people need jobs. The more categories you have, the better. So you can study the individual from he's a social animal, and then the other one, but he's a biological animal, but he's a psychological animal. So Freud is coming with this craziness, and And another one is coming with this sociological craziness, and this other one is coming with this biological craziness, and then it's like, okay, we are confused now. Biology is sociology. You won't have a society of people who are not biologically functioning. There's no society of dead people.
Oh, kaburini.
All of them are dead, but it is a society, the society of the grave. So there's this interesting one. And the other thing that is interesting is why they would give an old man. Why they would give this girl to an old man. And why it was important for this to be legitimate. Because of what we had said biologically and socially. The first man has changed her completely. He's completely changed her. Because I said, it's only a man who introduces her to this world of womanhood. A female does not enter womanhood by herself. It is through the man. Whether Europeans want to like it or put it the way they want. Because that is now what I was saying. It shows the body that it is ready to take in a baby. And this baby is completely from outside. It is a foreign entity. This sperm is a completely foreign entity. So this person introducing the sperm in her and her she's completely a different person. When she got into bed and when she woke up, she got pregnant. She's a total. Now, completely different reactions are starting to develop in her. Totally different. That's why they prefer she's in a marriage setting. She has protection. She has what she needs. Because for her to be effective in her motherhood journey. So you remember, two things are happening with her. She's going through womanhood, but she's also going through motherhood. So for her to go through her motherhood nicely, she needs as framework. There's some things she needs to have around. And this is what we are saying. You need these people to say and to give you evidence that they are ready to go through this, because it will test her. The other time we talked about how even the baby tests her. Until sometimes you think she's crazy. If you are with somebody who has not committed completely, that's why you keep finding nowadays these girls are abandoned everywhere. Because this clown was not ready for this job. He wanted the sex part, not what comes after it. He's an adolescent or whatever, a young adult, whatever Europeans will tell him he is. But she's been changed completely. She'll never be the same one after that. That's why the virginity was important. Now she gets the honor to decide how the great honor is not just because she's a virgin, it's because she gets to decide how her womanhood and motherhood will go.
Correct.
She can demand some things. She's more in a position of power.
Whoever she's not ready.
Yeah, she can reject.
She reject. She say no.
Yes,
Not
not
this one.
you.
Yeah.
She has a voice now. Not because she didn't have a voice, but she's protecting her. She can die giving birth. She's protecting her human beingness. It won't be given to anybody. So in the second part where they say this thrives, now this thrives. Just 1 minute. How this thrives, again, is really related to this system that we are under. Why it is important that this lawlessness kind of thrives. It is very important. As usual, we always have something else to to talk about that, so you really understand why I talk. I call this European thinking. Remember, I was talking about the book Debt, the first 5,000 years, because of just tracing that. They say something interesting that affects really marriage and the way you see these people look at marriage when they find us. In China, this was the period where the old Zhou Empire or Zhao Empire first devolved into vying principalities. This is 722 to 481 BC, then splintered into the chaos of the warring states, 475 to 221 BC. Like the Greek city-states, all of the resulting kingdoms, no matter how diminutive, aspired to issue their own official currency. So these city-states are issuing currency. Recent scholarship has shed a great deal of light on how this must have happened. Gold, silver, and bronze, the materials from which coins were made, had long been the media of international trade. But until that time, only the rich actually had much in their possession. A typical Sumerian farmer, this point, a typical Sumerian farmer may well have never had occasion to hold a substantial piece of silver in his hand, except perhaps at his wedding. Most precious metals took the form of wealthy women's anklets and heirloom chalices presented by kings to their retainers. It was simply stockpiled in temples, in ingot forms, as sureties for loans. Then he goes down and says something. Interesting. Get that people are not touching. Were not touching this money, these coins. They were there. They were always there, but they were kept in temples and this type of places. So it shows this is because the reason why this is important is because the temples would be raided. The temples would be raided. So soldiers is talking about how Israeli classicist David Sharps provides the most plausible suggestion. Most of it was stolen. This was a period of generalized warfare, and it is in the nature of war that precious things are plundered. Soldiers who plunder, so they are quoting what he said, soldiers who plunder may indeed first go for the women, the alcoholic drinks, or the food. So it shows you that in that time, the women were the first thing that they plundered the most because there was a lot of war. Europe, Asia, and also Eurasia. There was a lot of war. A long-term standing army will tend to accumulate many things that are valuable and portable. And the most valuable and portable items are precious metals and precious stones. But remember, it may well have been the protracted wars among the states of these areas that first produced a large population of people with precious metals in their possession and need for everyday necessities. Okay. Technical kidogo, but simple. The sense like, why I'm saying this is going back to what Ominde is saying. This person is sitting and calculating the value of his of his daughter in cows. It's impossible. We've just come from war. So which cows are there? Because these are the things that were plundered. The precious metals were not really important. So they were plundering the women, the alcoholic drinks, and the foods, even the Europeans. Even when we met them. So it is important to understand this. That comes to the second part where they were saying about this. Or in the book they were saying there was discouragement from school. This is one of those myths that creates industries. Modern education and adolescent girls. Progress in the education of adolescent girls is hampered because the Luo people do not appreciate its suitability to the environment of their women. To the majority, modern education is associated with clerical work and many other jobs that men take up after school career. The position of girls in this scheme is not clearly envisaged. Two very conflicting concepts. Is it the Luo people who do not want their children to go to school, or is it that in the whole scheme of things, this position for the girls is not envisaged? Because in this quagmire of details, or this mishmash of details, people forget these schools we're talking about, these modern schools, were introduced by the Europeans. And it was them who determined who went to school, not the society. So at the beginning, it was important for them that the women did not go to the schools, because the women were used as a bargaining chip to make the men work for the farms at the beginning. Because you could not force the Luo to work in their farms or do any work for clerical or otherwise. You could not. And you could not give them these coins and tell them this coin is precious. For what? I can't eat it. This thing they are calling money, I can't eat it. I don't need to shop. I grow everything. There's no way I can take it. I can't give it to my children. It's valueless. So you take the women, lock them away, and then you make them work, and then they get the woman. Second, after this process comes in and it is stable, you tell them you will take their women, but now you don't want to give him in exchange for work. You want him to get his wife in exchange for what? For money. Because your plan from the beginning was to get him on money. That was the point. You want him to be dependent on this thing. Because there's nothing you have brought. You have not brought food. You have not brought coffee, the way they say. You have not brought food. You have not brought mirrors. All that is mythological stories. But you want to introduce something that only you have. And you need them to get addicted to what you have. Oh, they brought sugar. Nonsense. We had sugar cane. You need them to be in a system where there's one thing you make and they're dependent on it. And it has to be something they don't know. The only thing they don't know is money. In the form of how it looks like. Because that's why I was reading that part. Them, the Europeans, they're used to this system of money because it's what they have been doing. That's what they raid for. That's what they use. That's what is in their temples. That's what it's saying in China and in the Greek states. People really forget that the Greeks are not the modern Germans. The old Greeks are not these Greeks that we see. The old Greeks, the old Romans they are no way related to the Germans, the British. They are not. The Romans thought the British were the most laziest people they had ever met. If you read their writings. So they were not the same people. This is why it was important for Freud to attach their generation to Oedipus in the myth, to try and show that it is one civilization, but it is not. So they are coming with this mindset. They know how money works. This is the only thing they have learned from their wars. Now they are meeting the Luos. These people have everything. They have the land, the food, the cows, the women, the children, the society, the knowledge, the institutions of education. They have everything. So how do you insert yourself in this space? If you can get his family, everything he owns, if you can get it under this money, that this money is the only way he can access it, You have succeeded. So why it is interesting to see Ominde and Southall saying that he's looking at his children, at his girls, as they're introducing this concept, especially in people like Ominde, because he's the one who has to introduce it to the whole society in the name of education. Just to get them attached to this money in the name of education. And then we are here. So it is like, oh, it was the Luos who did not want the girls. No, it was the European who did not want the girls to go to school because it was leverage. That's how he could leverage the men to work. So he could pay them money. So it is salary. You know? So that is how we come here. So this is why their industry does. Oh, the African traditions did not want the girls to go to school. No, they had their own education system. Yours was, you could not let that one stand because you needed him to be addicted to what you are bringing. Chiefly money. In the form that now he understands as money, coins and these things. Because that's the only way he could take the system and create a new system. So you can't let all of them go to school. Why? And the second reason, if you let all of them go to school, then you can't take things from them. Because the best way to take things from them is to raise prices. So if both of them are working, they can pay the tax. And remember, think about it like this. Say the tax is 2 coins. Let me call them 2 coins. 2 shillings. The tax is 2 shillings. And these people who are working on the farm, they have to work for a month to get a shilling. A whole month to get a shilling. Because you are the one making the money. You determine how it goes. You determine how much they get. It's not them. But if his wife starts working on the farm, they can get 2 of them working together, they can get a shilling. So it's 2 shillings. But you want him always to be in debt. You really want him to be always in debt so that you can keep taking things from him. Land, cows. That's the only way you can. You see it's happening even today. We give you motorcycle, it's super expensive, and then we take it from you. And then we have the motorcycle, we have money, and then you kufa. Shida kuko. The thing has not changed since we met this system.
In a large, it's the IMF and
But just let it be here down because IMF they come later. They come much later into the game. So you want to see it how it was happening at that time. So the guns have to be kept at home first because they are a problem to you. They can raise these taxes. So you have to keep them from being educated. Then when these ones have gone, then you can introduce and say you are saving them. But you just keep increasing the taxes now. So even if the 2 of them work, or the prices, not just taxes, but the prices of things, because now you own everything. Now after you own everything, the last person you want to get out of, the one you want to get out, now the one who is preventing you from controlling this person completely is this woman. This Luo woman. Because she has farms, she has goats, she has cows, and she knows how to maintain her family with that. Sorry, George, Gisecha Kokoda. Gisecha Kokoda.
animate much.
Yeah,
IMF World
Bas. So you want this woman to get out because you really want to keep this guy completely under your control. What he eats, what he thinks, everything. That's how you can keep the system going and you can get the resources. You have to get her out. Because her staying in the kitchen still gives them the opportunity to have some savings and stuff. If you kick her out, to give her some, whatever you call it, education or whatever, so that she can also go and hustle. Now, the place, the food, something that becomes pretty expensive and is really necessary. Now you can start introducing it in things like supermarkets and stuff. Because before she was the one who was keeping that point. And secondly, even if she was given money, she could do a lot with it. So now there's no saving because she was the bank of the house. Now there's no saving. Now they have to be completely dependent on you for everything. And then you introduce and say it's empowerment and all this. Empowerment and all these stories where we find ourselves. So that is where we are. But it is a very interesting way they put that it was them who did not want these girls to go there. It was him who did not want because he had a plan. Another thing that I find very interesting is these people think that when these people came and put this system there, that they were so stupid. They had not studied the African. They had not studied the Luo intimately and had done experiments just to see how they can work the system. Because the records of the precious stones and everything that was in Africa were there before they even set foot in Africa. And I don't mean just Europeans. I mean the Asians, the Arabs, all these people who came later, the Persians, the Medes, all these people, the Greeks. It was a known thing. This idea that Africa was a bush place where people were just running around naked and they didn't know anything. More cartoonish stuff. Oedipus, in the realm of Oedipus and all this, and Tom and Jerry and Bugs Bunny. That's that realm of thought. So all these things are known. Because even you see, from what I've read, you see they're already during the Warring States. That is 422 BC, according to their calendar, before the current era. Which is before Christ, but before the current era. They were already storing up these things and they were already fighting for this and they were already raiding for women and food and liquor. The same things that were introduced even to Luo society. That's the most important thing. It's women first, then liquor, then food. Same structure. And everywhere in Africa, not only Luo, but everywhere in Africa, it's the same. It's the same three things. Ouda, Ouda, just hey, they have stepped on you. Ginyono in. Ouda. Luo Girl. Art thou there? What? Or is it me who is lost? Oh. How did Duogo? Wonele.
Koroginyona.
Yeah. Kidwacha kokodi.
Nyona. Wacho
Wa mi mondi wach gimoro.
akia gima wacho momi inyona kama.
Iluongo 3-letter organizations.
Yeah. Ramoth, this is quite interesting, and I want our people to understand what the book The Luo Girl. Wasome to kendo wasome ko ahere ok wasome ni wasome for puonjruok. So we are trying to put perspective into gima ominde kod South Hall was trying to do. And the most important thing, and when you read the introduction of the book says Ominde had only, or Ominde actually write while on vacation. That tells a lot. Vacation in 1949, which means ni summer Kenny school chair. How long would that be? And also he had this mentor who is on his neck, who is supervising whatever is writing must be written through the eye of this new person, new European who has come and as much as our forefathers were taking their cows to Lake Victoria, and our grandmothers were washing themselves, whatever they had in the lake, the mats and all that, and the cow skins and all that, still there was no lake. Somebody had to come from somewhere to come discover it. So we are simply digesting what Uminde's mind was thinking and what his mentor was thinking. And then we take it out of their mind and their eyes, and we put it in the true perspective of what life was then. Because Ramot asked a very important question from the reading.
Ouda ukumie nafasi. Why? It's problem. It's come, it's go. Luo Girl iwinjo.
Antiere awinje.
Idwa wacho gimoro nikech Ouda owang'o i.
Ouda pod anyuola lao.
Idwa wacho gimoro.
Oneno chung' anyuola make giwuo gitiek weche ma gilaro.
Ouda iwinjo.
No, Lal, actually.
Nilal. Luo Girl wacho ni gimoro ka. Luo Girl nuo ne owinj.
Koro en anyuola malawe go chung' owuo kodgi mondo gitiek wachno owe ringo.
Koro to winjo.
Owinje.
Maler.
Yeah, no, Ramotha, I'm just saying, at the end, I can't come on, but in the end, all I'm saying is, all we are doing is to just put the true perspective of this Luo girl growing up. And I think the most important thing is for us that we are learning is it wasn't just growing up. It wasn't just a Luo girl growing up. It wasn't just the milestones being counted. This is that. It meant a lot because they are at the end. They are the community. They are the woman, like you've said, Ramot. They determined everything that happens to the next generation. That's the truth. So we need the community needed to be very united around bringing up this little girl up, and I don't think I could be ever proud. I'm taking out Uminde on this. I'm happy he wrote the book so that we can read it. And then he painted his own idea in 1949 growing up. But we are using what he wrote as a launch pad onto putting the true perspective of what Luo people are, not are. Because Ramot, you said it very well. The system never changes. It's always there. It doesn't matter the consciousness of what life needs to be. It never changes, and again, it never begs. You can run away from it, but you come back to it. Yesterday, remember that issue of giving the kids ourselves white books until we are 20, 23, 24, and then all of a sudden we are like, I'm an African. And then we want to become Africans after reading white books for 20 years, 22, 23 years. But remember, how you reduce it was fantastic. So I don't think I don't
Yes. Luo Girl nyaka iwach gimoro nikech maybe that is what bokwe anyuola. Maybe mane ma bokwe anyuola and bring it to
Anyalo wacho mana
know whether Ramata we continuing the reading or the time when it
Ouda ne jogo timo ni gicha koro nawacho Luo Girl nyaka buo mondo giweyi matin.
kendo wuoyo magiweya. Kara giwinjo duonde. Ramot ing'e
Luo
ni
Girl dhi
Luo
mbele.
kowil nitie nitie Luo ga in gi Luo girls ariyo be I know you know.
Kendo kan ema realize.
Yeah, koro moro akero do moso wen be.
Ing'e shida Antoine polygamist koro weche tek.
Luo girl too. Hello. Oh, okay, nere no kowinjo. Yeah, dhi mbele Luo girl one.
Awinjo amoso te studio. Awinjo maler kaka weche dhi, kaka Ominde nodhi gi wachni.
Omindo loko weche taro ka. But en wuodwa wahere. Aya, Luo girl one, go ahead.
Apparently, I think with the expansions, I'm learning a lot, especially the colonization of our culture. Though I'm taking it from the layman's side, kakuminde ondike no, e kaka kawe, nikech without going deeper, ang'iyo how I grew up and comparing it to this. Though some aspects of this were in the 1940s, but the late 90s and early 2000s still had, before so much invention of technology and linked to the outer world, quote unquote, some of these things were still happening. And ang'iye gi kaka Omindi ondike with the concept that Ramoth is bringing in, the concept of bringing out the European picture, like explaining our culture in the European way. It makes quite a big difference. Putting price tags on our women and the aspect of prostitution, it brings out a whole lot of things. So apart from being a participant in the read, I am also a learner. Something else with the read that I noticed was maturity was, menstruation is what maturity is then, according to Ominde and his informers, because most part of it is he's mentioned that he had informers. So when you're informed of something, and he's now informing us of few that we didn't know. So menstruation signaled maturity in women. So despite the fact that the exact age couldn't be determined, but at least maturity was determined by menstruation. So in as much as some girls menstruate earlier in their teens, others late in their teens, but they had a way of gauging maturity. Then the aspect of culture. Ne nitiere kweche, and queer are not myths, queer are beliefs, and these people, a culture, all cultures have queer. Nyathi ma nyako ok donj e ot kama min gi riwore gi wuongi kapod ginyuolo nyithindo. It wasn't allowed. The same to wuoro dhi e simba. It wasn't allowed. So I think in as much as they might not have had so much adverse visible effect, they showed how our people maintained boundaries and respect at that particular time, something that is not there right now, because I can still live in my father's house, and since it is my father's house, I will go and help my mom clean the beddings and clean their bedroom and all that, because those are in the past, they say so. So that boundary and that respect is somehow getting lost. So that is also a point to note. And I think it's just that.
Ouda.
Oh,
Mm.
ah,
Kaya.
wantiro kwala. Bas, the Lugal, thank you for your input. And I think one important aspect here is that we are all learning, and I'm happy you're saying that as much as you are a participant in the reading and bringing out the concept of the Luo girl, and you are a character in this sense, the character of the Luo girl, but you are not just a character. You are learning. You are seeing the different side on what should have happened if Ominde could write the truth and could do proper uh, investigation, not depend on being told what to say and at what point. And also, I'm sure at some point he knew this was not what I needed to write, but because of his mentor, he had to write that. Um, Having said that, I must be honest that this is a very, very intriguing journey. Reading the Luo Girl, set up 1949. Um, is it writing the truth? No. Are we um, are we pretending we are brighter than him during that period? I'm not that those are not the right words. What we are saying is we are standing in the gap and we are saying we are not going to allow the hunter write for the hunted a story anymore. The hunted has also learned to write, so the hunted want to write their own story. But the Luo girl was once raised, we've seen, not only by a mother but by a culture, a community, and a philosophy of life. Today she walks through a louder, faster, and more confusing world as it is. Or is it to a educated,
Ouda. Gitamre. Gitamre. Ouda gitamre.
Jagora mone kawuono.
Thou shall not speak it. Ouda. Giojon, thou shall not speak it. Thine mind it.
Iduogo.
Ouda Dimbele, but
I work for a lady. I talked to a lady who worked for an apartheid police officer for 22 years. And she says they were not exactly what you've said. It is the apartheid system. Those guys did not allow them to go to school, not their parents. So it is confirmed. I can confirm it. That lady, to date, she is very, very aware of that. She knows it, that it is the apartheid that didn't want them, the girls, to go to school, especially. You are forced to work, to go to work, and you have to work for them. So it's confirmed. That I can confirm because I've talked to her. She's now 76 years old. So yeah, I'm gonna leave it there, Amot. But I wanna thank you so much for always doing this to us.
Uh-oh.
If the community stops teaching its daughters who they are, who then will teach them what they are worth? I think those are questions that we really need to ask ourselves going forward into the next reading. But for today, the Luo girl, thank you. Thank you. The Luo girl number 2, thank you. Because you always make us know that in case there is a blockage, one continues. So thank you guys. Thank you, Ramot, for always taking your time. It's a very intriguing journey with you, reading these books, connecting them to others, and distinguishing between the myths and the facts. And we need to know that however loud facts are, however loud opinions and myths are, they will never be facts, even if they are written on books. And this book, The Luo Girl, has shown us it's full of opinions, It's full of myths. It can never be the facts. We are putting facts into it, and you're helping us do that. Thank you. Aduoko ni nikech into magi jogi agin wendi an host koro in ema in welo gi jogi koro mago jogi wuo kodgi.
Magi nyikwa Ramogi. Iwacho gin joga po Wang'ai Street. Magi jo Ramogi. Hopefully, the last time, actually, the children have to be taught how to think. But the parents who are not thinking cannot teach their children how to think. So, as much as we go through these stories, we're hoping at least we're learning how to think. Katakamatin. So we can pass it on to our children and then ginyalo pick it up and ginyalo dhi kode, ginyalo ringo kode ng'wech ma ginyalo kalo kata paro ma wan waparo. So mane meet gini, we do not, I personally, I really like the book. More than like, I love the book. Because it gives you a chance to have insight into, okay, this is the record of what he's seeing, which his recording of the thing is exactly like he's seeing. But you're also looking at him, how he's thinking and how his mentor is thinking about what they're seeing. So there's 3 levels to this. He's just writing what he's seeing. It's not like he's writing lies. He's a record gimoneno. And then we get a chance to look at him, who is observing the scene, and then the person who is observing him observe the scene, and then as we're observing the scene, and also the people who are observing the scene. So hopefully, Komano, if that is not confusing, hopefully we're learning to the core of Luo thought is consciousness. Consciousness is about the mind thinking. So even doing this is really being Luo. And this is important for the next generation, that this becomes a regular thing that one used to. They find this is what we do. It is common for us to do this. It is common for us to challenge our minds and our patience and our time and our commitment, and to expand this angle ma spirituality that is Luo. So as we always say, how would I do go before I finish up?
No, and anasetieko.
Okay. I would really appreciate all the cultural champions for being here and taking your time and not bailing on us. You are the message. You are the future. You are the thought. You are the cooperation. And you are what is important. You are the prize. We are just privileged to be Jolwedo, just mere messengers of the message. But even though we are mere messengers of the message, we take this. It's a great honor to deliver this message and to represent you in the best way we can. We hope every time, we reach a place where we can always represent you better, more and more competent, more and more clearly, because you deserve it and you're worth it, being that you're you are the prize. You've been in this world for thousands of years, and you are our heaven. You are where we will dwell forever. I would also like to go erokamano to Ramogi Cultural Institute for the Luo Heritage Research and Education. Miyowaji's chance that just to dwell on the culture and to know what it is and to see what a prize we have been given through the culture, and what a resource it is, and how we can build on it in the future, and how by building on it, we can build Kenya, East Africa, and Africa in the long run. And we can play our part in the development of this beautiful and wide and vast and rich continent by remembering ourselves. And so we can offer Africa a stable people who are comfortable dealing with other people because they're stable in themselves, they appreciate themselves, so they can appreciate others. They're clear about themselves, so they can be clear about others. They give themselves chances through all the things they've passed through, so they can give others a chance. It will be challenging if we give other people a chance and we do not give ourselves a chance. We'll be asking them to be crazy to trust us. We'll be asking them to really believe in delusions that they are seeing that we have not healed ourselves and be comfortable with our history and digested our history to make it an engine for us to develop, improve, and go on, and not always look at our history with disdain and disgust and always try to escape from it, making ourselves escape from ourselves. So we can offer the world something, the future world, we can offer it something that is stable and makes sense. So in that aspect, I give thanks for this opportunity to Ouda Wonle, to the Luo Girl. The Luo Girl ego koko thoroughly. The Luo Girl 1, Luo Girl 2, Ogo koko thoroughly. The Luo Girl 1, the Luo Girl 2, and my shadow. Tipo na Ramoth GK, whoever that shadow is, but kik giyuda kaka Luanda Magere ba gichuo shadow na ba Ouda awe mogo, hopefully. So erokamano sana for being here.
In mari ok ni e shadow ni, in kendo mari kendo ni kama opogore. Mari ok ni e shadow ni.
Achiro ke ni shadow.
Ok en ni shadow ni to kendo to in bende ok ibi kawo cheruto giwalo.
Apenjo amanyo mana cheruto mara kaka.
Ouda.
Yeah.
Ouda.
Yes.
Awego koko. An gi kwaya achiel.
Wachane, wachane.
Gona uru a Flynn the Pretty mar George Ramogi gi Metro Dumbe Dumbe kawatieko.
Kendo asemanyo ng'ama nyalo ng'isa wendo no iluongo nang'o? Ang'e, erokamano. Mana mi kapok ami.
Aya.
Erokamano.
Telo an asetieko, koro ng'is DJ mondo gine launch the music.
Erokamano Ramoth. Erokamano Luo Girl 1, erokamano Luo Girl 2. You guys, you are a good you're a beautiful team. Erokamano cultural champions. Ujo mabeyo. Ujo mabeyo kabisa. Uketo girwa ni obet maber, donje uru. Expression no ng'ama okele wa kanye. Luo Girl expression wa kanye ni gir ng'ane ni ber donje uru. Everywhere asewinjo gino. Anyway, Ramoth erokamano. Erokamano ahinya. Luo Girl 1, Luo Girl 2 erokamano. Nyikwa Ramogi Ajwang' erokamano ahinya. Koro an bende atieko hand over ne DJ mondo kawuono Friday omiwa ngoma kidogo kidogo. Owacho ne en gi reggae lined up. Owacho ne pok otiekre go risito kale kochako kale masanga. Bas koro dwa mielore nyaka bang'e kanyo ma kidogo. Erokamano, koro wamiele matin, weche gi opong'o wi wadu. Nyasaye otelnu. Erokamano. Bong'o nyaka laga mane otelo ne Ramogi telnu. Ng'ado Luo Girl, Kosang'ado Luo Girl moro cha. Odwa goyo riti. Luo Girl tu idwa goyo riti. Mitang'adi. Luo Girl tu. Okay.
Uchoti nyanja owiro dhoge mo pesa lara chupa